Hello, everyone. Like I said yesterday, I was going to come back and discuss a topic that weighs on my mind. It does concern also what's going on with our children in Tennessee, especially since Governor Bill Lee is associated also with a church that's covering up Aaron Solomon's deeds that he had done to his children. Him, along with Senator Jack Johnson, are both in this together, and I will share with y'all in a few minutes what's going on. Please say hello. Please hit the thumbs up. In Matthew chapter 18, verse 6, but whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depths of the sea. And then in Matthew 18:10, take heed that ye despise not one of these little ones, for I say unto you, that in heaven their angels do always behold the face of my Father which is in heaven. So like I said, I think this is very imperative that I get the words out. I'll go ahead and read the copyright disclaimer, although I have it at the bottom of my screen. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Right, so now I will show y'all, go over what I have found concerning the great governor of Tennessee. Sorry I voted for him. I will never vote for him again. This was from the Tennessean, and this was March the 14th this year, 3:38 p.m. Governor's office pushes to dissolve Commission on Children and Youth amid foster care woes. Senator Jack Johnson sponsoring the bill. Of course he is. For y'all who don't know him too well, I'll go back over a couple of the things about him after this. Senator Jack Johnson, he's a Republican in Franklin, is sponsoring a bill to dissolve the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth. Despite a state crisis in which foster children are staying in workers' offices, Governor Bill Lee's office wants to dissolve the independent Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth. Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson confirmed he will be presenting Senate Bill 282 Wednesday in the Senate Health and Welfare Committee after a briefing with the governor's office on the rationale and motive for the move. I do know all the responsibilities of that group are being distributed to other parts of the government. Johnson, a Franklin Republican, said Monday, I don't believe a thing you say, Johnson. The House version of the bill, HB 330, sponsored by House Majority Leader William Lambert, has not been scheduled to be heard. State Senator Farrell Hale, a Gallatin Republican, raised questions about the administration's plan Tuesday, but said he isn't aware of every detail. Yes, raise questions. Don't let it go through, Senator Farrell Hale. Come on now, stick up for the kids. What I do know is they done a great service. CASA court appointed special advocates is involved, and so I have grave concern. I would too. because children needs special advocates advocating for them. State Senator Jeff Yarborough, a Nashville Democrat, was more critical, saying it's totally without justification. Officials in Governor Bill Lee's office are backing a move to dissolve an independent commission after a report prepared by the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth pointed out instability in the state's foster care system. Yes, there's instability, but what do you do? You're just going to go ahead and just ban it. You're not going to go ahead and try to fix the system. You're not going to try to have a place for the kids. What's your problem, people? Do what's right and stop hiring representatives and people in the DCS system, which I did a video on the other day concerning some of the people that were hired that physically abused the children, even shot at them. Created by the legislature, the commission is made up of 21 members appointed by the governor, in addition to an executive director. Now, I know that they went ahead and they did arrest the guy that shot at the kids, but prior to this, they already knew that several kids had to be taken to the hospital because they were abused so severely at this worker's hands, and yet they still kept him as a worker. They said they did not see him as a dangerous person for our kids. And excuse me, when the kids had to get medical attention due to your abuse, why did you not get arrested for this way back then? Abusing the children. The Commission works with state agencies, juvenile courts, child advocacy groups, and other organizations to bolster children's services. But while it is an unbiased group designed to provide state leaders with information, sources familiar with the situation, says officials within the governor's office are upset with the agency's state of kids report. Notably, it points out that Tennessee struggles with foster care instability at a level not seen in the rest of the country, showing the highest rate of foster care instability in the nation each year from 2016 to 2020. Puerto Rico had the closest rate at 25.9% in 2020 compared to Tennessee's 33.7% of instability among those in state custody. So many people keep uplifting the CPS, but CPS has got a lot of downfalls, as I showed the other day. But the uh, government, TBI, all different things are supposed to be stepping in there and helping to correct it. Tennessee's comptroller also filed a report recently detailing crisis level shortcomings with the Department of Children's Services and its foster care program. The governor's office made some headway in late 2022 with extra funding for DCS to increase social workers' salaries. But Memphis lawmakers say children continue to stay in state offices because of an inability to place them with families. Probably because a lot of times there's somebody in the family that probably would like to take them, but like you probably would not place a kid in my care because me having the history that I had been abused in the past. So y'all would just kindly probably overlook somebody like me. Do something about it, people. Do something about it, the government. Come on now. The state's level of foster care instability increased to 33.7% from 32% between 2018 and 2020, while the national rate jumped from 15.8% to 16% and then dipped to 14.9% according to the annual Kids Count report. This right here is Senator Farrell Hale. He's a Republican in Gallatin of a move to dissolve the Tennessee Commission on Children and youth. He says he's got grave concern about it. I do too, mister. I do too. There's got to be ways to fix the broken system, but you cannot eradicate. You do not need to eradicate things like CASA, child advocacy. No, that does not need to be eradicated. It needs it more than ever, especially of all the kids that are being trafficked in the area. If y'all would buckle down to these, like Senator Jack Johnson and his wife, Judge Deanna Johnson, who's permissible and tells people, well, I'm going to leave it at that, and I'll let you know more on that in a second. Oh, basically, to sweep it under the rug and get over being sexually abused, that it's not a godly thing, it's a Christian thing for the survivors to go ahead and bring it up. You need to just forget about it. Da 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 is what they're saying. And she's a judge, and he's a state senator, and then the governor Billy is affiliated all with that same church. Right? It's a fact. If you don't like it, Governor Billy, straighten it out. Do something about it. Fix it. Stop being part of the problem. Be part of the solution. That was a very important report that came out from that group that informed Tennesseans about what was really going on with our children in this state. And to silence their voice at this moment when our children are at their worst is indefensible, said Heidi Campbell, Democrat Nashville, said today. I usually, I'm not going to say how I usually vote, but I would definitely go for either Hell or Heidi Campbell. We need to get rid of that Jack Johnson. The governor's office did not respond immediately to questions about the Tennessee lookout, but about 2.5 hours after the article was published, spokeswoman Jade Byers sent a statement saying, the governor is deeply committed to strengthening his support for Tennessee children and families. In addition to more than $190 million to support DCS's mission, this proposal is another meaningful step to better serve Tennessee children by incorporating important services within child family serving state agencies, which includes DCS. To be clear, Tennessee is not cutting services for children and families, but rather integrating them into state government, meaning that current services will remain intact and be relocated. Well, excuse me, you're already in DCS is already state. Excuse me, so how is that? You're saying something meaningless right there. Good, Sam. Good to see you. The statement also noted the Department of Children's Services recently announced children in all but one county are living in transitional homes or nonprofit houses because of Commissioner Margie Quinn's work. Richard Kennedy, executive director of the commission, did not respond to questions Tuesday, but the Tennessee Lookout obtained the commission's talking points for the bill in which it contends the state is being served by having an independent, consolidated state agency working with several state departments and agencies. It had no findings in its most recent state audit. The 21 member commission is a model for citizen engagement and participation, and the depths of their knowledge and subject matter expertise lead to broad oversight and improved decision making process that improved the lives of Tennessee children, youth, and families, which I'm not going to believe a lot of what is going on since Governor Lee, as I said, and Judge that Senator Johnson are affiliated with pedophilia and covered it up. In its 35 years, the Commission has acted as a third party reviewer for the state, noting one instance it conducted a review of Mountain View Youth Development Center following the suicides of two young men. At the time, Deputy Governor Jim Henry said without the Commission's review, the state would have to hire outside counsel at great expense or set up a citizen review panel, which would have slowed the process. The Commission's review allowed for a cost effective, credible, and timely review and recommendations. Um, and it says Yarborough pointed out the Lee administration did not propose the reduction in its original budget, but is bringing it up seemingly because the commission raised awareness about foster care shortcomings. Excuse me, excuse me. How many kids are you really taking out from homes that really need the kids taken out? A lot of times you're just interjecting. Just got a lot of friends that lost their kids because uh, a guy like their daddy, for instance, had been an abuser and he had been in jail. He physically abused the mother. Then he gets out of jail and he gets to come out and he gets custody of the kids. That's the way that CPS and the government's going now. They're actually charging the mama, letting the daddy go ahead and retaliate back and accuse the mama of abusing. And has not been any type of proof whatsoever behind that. Our whole system in the whole United States is screwed up majorly. The Commission's budget for this year is 6.1 million, up from 4.9 million in fiscal 2021-22. But suddenly the entire agency appears to be on the chopping block. Well, if you got people that work for the agency that were physically abusing the children, and then you go ahead and still put them at a closer proximity, move them to another area, and I'm sure the reason why the kids ran away from that home was because the guy was beating them. He already had to take several kids to the hospital because of his physical abuse. But then this guy goes ahead and gets a gun and starts shooting at the children. Very smart government. And guess what? You are liable. You are liable for all these kids that this was done to. And I think that's why you're running scared right now. If the administration were as committed to solving problems facing children in state custody as quickly as it is silencing critics, we'd be in a lot better shape. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. If they stop trying to silence the critics against them because of their stuff, but I think this effort is petty and abusive. Kudos. Thank you. Yarbur's predecessor, Senator Douglas Henry, worked to establish the commission to be a voice and advocate for children, those who sometimes don't have anybody in their lives to advocate for them, the most vulnerable people in our entire society. According to the Commission's report, the percentage of community placements within the Department of Children's Services fell from 71% in 2016 to 38% in 2021, while the percentage of teens in youth development centers increased to 22% in 2021 from 16% in 2016. Even worse, 31% of children in state custody were held in juvenile justice centers in 2019 and 29% in 2021 compared to zero from 2016 to 2018. The number in jail and detention remained between 8% and 12% from 2016 to 2021, according to the report. Tennessee is not living up to our legal responsibilities, much less our moral responsibilities when it comes to these children, and we should all be grateful to the Commission for trying to shine a light on these problems. The Commission's report wasn't completely negative. Child poverty dropped nearly 25% between 2019 and 2021, and the number of distressed counties also fell to 10 from 15 over the 2 year period, in part because of the governor's policies of vocational training and broadband expansion. Well, you got new laws out there for child sex trafficking, child abuse. Everybody's a mandated reporter. But then you got the judge and the senator and all this that is knocking cases out, saying that from these Christian academies, saying they need to be silenced. We don't need to hear it. The number of homeless students decreased over the last few 3 years, but the state saw a slight increase in the number of children sleeping in less safe environments. Tennessee ranks 47th nationally for program support for families, according to the report, and it pointed out that increasing the state minimum wage, expanded income eligibility for health insurance, paid family leave, and a refundable state earned income tax credit are areas for increasing support. Well, stop letting Biden raise all these dang taxes, all these damn prices on everything, and that's going to help a lot better. Because no matter how much you raise that, it's not going to help too much if the cost of living and everything else keeps rising as well. The state ranks 41st in the youth mental health, with 17.3% experience at least one major depressive episode. Problems were exacerbated by the pandemic, as the state reported 144 deaths by suicide among those 24 and under in 2020. Yet substance abuse declined during the pandemic and remains lower than in pre-pandemic years. The report notes Tennessee is one of 12 states that charges sales tax on groceries. 1 in 5 children suffer from food insecurity. A 3-month break on the food sales tax is part of the governor's budget. It also points out Tennessee is one of 11 states that's opted not to expand Medicaid coverage. Such a move could increase the number of Tennessee children with insurance coverage. Yeah, leave it up to him. Okay, so now I'll show the other part. Like I said, we know about the Gracie and Grant story that I basically spoke about yesterday. Grace Christian Academy has not released a public statement, and Steve Berger, I guess they pronounce it Berger, Ministries, is demonizing survivors of assault. Grace Christian Academy does, however, send out aggressively threatening letters to anyone who speaks about this matter publicly. Prominent guests at Grace Chapel include the power couple of Jack Johnson, that's who I just spoke about, Senator Jack Johnson, Republican state senator, and his wife, Judge Deanna Bell Johnson, the judge who signed the order forbidding Angelia Solomon from seeking any legal redress for the abuse she and her family have suffered on the hands of Aaron Solomon, the one who kept raping his daughter. Judge Deanna Bell was Johnson was forbidding and had it, and I think that she should have recused herself since she was friends with the daddy. They were there is bad in itself as well. They have made a habit of troubling rulings against victims of abuse and assault, as we can be seeing how it's treated the victim in the Brentwood Academy case. Here is Senator Jack Johnson. There is Judge Deanna Johnson. You need to have that smile wiped off of that face, too. I would not be proud of it. In August of 2017, a sixth grade student was sexually assaulted and raped by several other pupils in the locker room at Brentwood Academy. And after the assault dismissed and belittled by the headmaster of the school, Curtis Masters, Judge Johnson ruled that the case had no merit and dismissed it with prejudice. According to an article in the Tennessean, Judge Johnson even faced accusations of plagiarism because her ruling seemed to have been copied from the defense's brief. Not to be outdone by his wife, Senator Johnson allegedly helped cover up the case of a 3-year-old child who had been sexually assaulted by a teenage Sunday school teacher at Fellowship Bible Church Daycare in Brentwood. Although he does not worship at Grace Chapel, Judge Philip E. Smith has been criticized for similar attitudes as his colleagues. He went viral a few years ago for an outburst of rage from the bench in which he screamed at female attorney Cynthia Cheatham. Later, Judge Smith neither explained nor apologized for the incidents, stating to Fox 17 that I stand by what I said. It was the same Judge Smith who not only excluded the testimonies of three medical professionals, all of which were in Angelia's favor. Angelia is Grace and Grant Solomon's mother. She's also a pharmacist. He also dismissed her claims that Aaron had tried to strangle her, responding, I don't believe you. I do believe you tried to commit suicide. And yet she had been in a hospital and everything. She had a psych evaluation and everything. And every one of the doctors had said, no, that Aaron Solomon did this. We believe her. She is not suicidal. Da 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 da. They're believing him because he had an inheritance from his aunt dying of several $1 million. Additionally, several sources have confirmed that Judge Smith is rather friendly with Aaron Solomon's legal representation, D. Scott Parsley. Oh, that's why. So you're not judging fairly. You're biased right there. You are biased. Both of these judges have sworn and signed oaths of office which state that they should rule fairly and impartially. Whether this is what they're currently doing, however, is unclear. The church is not Aaron's only source of supporters, though. As a former WSMV news anchor and radio personality, he has what he describes on his link page as good friends and former colleagues at one of the biggest networks in the area. I don't think I will watch Channel 4 if you're going ahead and being friends with the likes of a pedophile and a murderer. These pictures show him with Jeremy Finley, the chief of investigative reporting at WSMV, and Terry Bulger, WSMV's story guy and human interest report. WSMV cannot be reached for comment, but their lack of reporting on the story speaks volumes. There he is right there. Yep, and the guy right beside him wrote that book. And then there's his best friend, fellow Grace Chapel attendee, another attendee from that ludicrous church that's promoting pedophilia. Personal friend to Steve Berger and viral sensation in his own right, Sam Johnson, who garnered much media attention last year when he was filmed going out of his way to attack and demean a boy wearing a dress to a high school prom. Well, you might have attitudes and stuff like that, but with this guy being a Johnson and the judge being a Johnson and the senator Johnson, I can't help but wonder. They're probably related. After Gracie's allegations emerged, Sam, who both Gracie and Angelia had blocked because of the abusive and manipulative messages towards them, used his dog Governor's Instagram page to chastise them for speaking up. Use the governor's Instagram page. Dog. Oh, it's dog governors. Okay, I guess got a dog named Governor. In his message, he said that talking about the allegations publicly brings shame on Jesus' name. No, you're bringing shame. You're the one bringing shame. You are allowing this pedophilia to go. You should be ashamed of yourself, all you people. You do not want shame brought on yourselves, but you want everybody else to be quiet. You want all this to go away. And then with them doing this, trying to push, going like this and trying to push, um, dissolve the Commission on Children and Youth Amid Foster Care Woes. Senator Jack Johnson is sponsoring the bill. And like I said, his wife is Judge Deanna Johnson, who's permitted all this other atrocities as well, and Governor Bill Lee is along with them. So he's helping push Governor Bill Lee's agenda. I'm basically getting us all to shut up. According to his LinkedIn page, Aaron Solomon doesn't just hobnob with people like David Briley, the one-time mayor of Nashville and Davidson County, though. As a private wealth advisor for Clint Cole and Associates, a team working under the Merrill Lynch umbrella, Aaron also congregates professionally with clients of substantial means. Well, I hope all of you have your reputations tarnished. Hope all of you lose that money and pay back the survivors' due diligence. Since you're going like this and you're ruining their reputations, their livelihood, you're ruining their lives, and all this, no amount of money can fix the damage that was done. Excuse me. Who all that does and doesn't entail remains to be seen, but it should be acknowledged that a job like that comes with significant social capital. Clint Cole and Associates cannot be reached for comment at this time. Of course not. Of course not. And finally, we shouldn't forget his years of volunteer work at Our Kids Tennessee, led and founded by Sue Fort White. It's a nonprofit organization that provides services to vulnerable child survivors of sexual abuse. He actually worked with that agency too, and he's getting away with sadistically abusing his children. And this lady, well, don't show her picture, that lady is a friend of his. I would not call our kids. I would not at all. Our kids has many connections to social workers, guardians, CASAs, lawyers, and judges. When reached for comment, Sue Fort White said that Aaron Solomon resigned from the board in 2016 and was merely attending the nonprofit events as a guest, although there's evidence to suggest that Aaron started a fundraiser for Our Kids Tennessee as late as 2020. She also said that as a former DCS worker, she trusts in the processes, as well as the policies and procedures of the Tennessee Department of Children's Services. Of course, you're probably one of the bad eggs. And it goes on to wonder the spiritual manipulation that happened. It says, but how could this situation ever come this far? Why would anyone endure a spouse as abusive as Aaron Solomon? Simple answer is this religious and emotional indoctrination. Angela Huffines was raised in the fundamentalities of evangelical Christianity, and as a report by Dr. Reed states, she suffered abuse at the hands of her parents as well. This comes to no surprise. Many fundamentalist churches preach not to spare the rod, so as not to spoil the child. While the extent of this abuse is uncertain, it's fair to say that Angie was raised from birth to adhere to fundamentalist image of biblical womanhood, to be meek, humble, obedient, and to submit herself unto her husband, as the church submits herself unto Christ. And Julia's own father, himself a lifelong evangelical fundamentalist, told his daughter, who was scared for her life and that of his grandchildren, that he would pay for a lawyer to lift the restraining order against Aaron, but no one to help her get a divorce. Dr. Murphy, who treated Angela in the hospital after Aaron allegedly tried to strangle her, notes in his report that patients' parents also seem to be unreliable sources of information. The mindset of constant self depreciation, unworthiness, and planted by abusive pastors who claim to serve God is the ideal breeding ground for an abusive marriage to a narcissist who thinks he's a god, with the victimized spouse caught in the role of the perpetual scapegoat. Grace Chapel and its legally distinct founder, Steve Berger, preached that the biblical definition of and instructions pertaining to sexual ethics in all circumstances and in the biblical definition of marriage as being between one man and one woman for one lifetime. Interpretation of the Bible is a contentious issue, and that quote could mean anything from condemning adultery to disallowing divorce to legitimizing spiritual abuse and marital rape. So then we'll go on which end of the spectrum the Trinity of Berger, Grace Chapel, and Grace Christian Academy fall becomes clear when you listen to the sermon Berger has tried to scrub from the internet. His 2018 sermon about the Christian Blasey Ford hearings. In it, he espouses the so called two witness rule, dictating that any allegation of abuse needs to be substantiated by at least two witnesses. Excuse me, when the father's in there raping the daughter, okay, there would not be two witnesses. Excuse me. This same rule has been controversially discussed in other church related sexual abuse cases like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints and Jehovah's Witnesses, since it allows abusers within the church to continue victimizing children as long as there are no witnesses. Berger also warns that there can be no pity. Don't have pity on the false accusers. Don't allow emotional testimony to supersede the facts of the case. Don't pity for them to the degree of self inflicted judgment. No, we don't need to pity. Oh, man. I don't pity you, Berger. I do not pity you because hell hath no fury. Because guess what? You're going against God's principles. You're a false prophet. Statistics show that false accusations are exceedingly rare. Between 2 and 5% of sexual assault allegations are fictitious. But as Gracie's attorney, Alex Little, points out, sexual abuse is one of the hardest crimes to detect, prove, and prosecute. Since there usually aren't any witnesses, sexual abuse and assault are by their very nature private crimes, not typically the kind of stranger danger assaults children were warned about in past decades. It follows then what Pastor Berger is really saying here is don't have pity with victims. Don't have pity with them. No, but you're supposed to help. You're saying just eradicate them, shut them up. And guess what? Like I said, Governor Bill Lee's affiliated with that same church. So is Senator Jack Johnson. So is Judge Deanna Johnson. So is that guy Johnson that's author that was beside him. More recently, Pastor Steve has streamed a series of sermons entitled Exposing the Enemy, Secured Our Victory to his congregation. He's actually calling the people that's telling the truth the enemy. Securing a Christian's victory, basically. No, that is not victory. That's securing Satan's victory. Not Christ. Hey there, how you doing? You just finished work? It's good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. He said, in it, as well as the accompanying notes that worshippers can receive it as a newsletter, he states emphatically that it's a righteous thing with God to repay with tribulation those who persecute you. No, it's you need to fix it. If the daddy is doing something to a child, fix it. The preachers, the elders, and everything are supposed to reprise. They're supposed to get on to the parent that is doing wrongly. And you're right there, you're allowing it. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure he's the one or if it's someone else, but they also buried a young child that was, he had eyes for her. And when she became, guess, closer to the right age, he ended up marrying her. You only wonder how many of these teachers are essaying them kids up there on the school grounds. One can only wonder at whom the series aims, but its release on the 7th of June, 2021, less than a month after Gracie published her YouTube video by giving the reader a hint. In the sermons, Berger also directs his congregants to employ a so-called imprecatory prayers, most commonly understood to function akin to a curse. What? He wants people to pray upon a curse to the victims that go and tell. He does not mention Gracie or her mother by name. He does say that it's just to pray imprecatory prayers against those who have mocked the church, accused falsely, sown divisiveness, and threatened the unity of his congregation. Excuse me, accused falsely? You're the one that fits in that category there. You're accusing Gracie falsely. You're accusing the mother falsely. You accuse Grant of it falsely, and now he's dead. And how dare you say that when and do the thing up there when after he died and say, well, he came up to talk about Jesus. No, he came up bringing you to the awareness of what's going on with the family and about his sister being essayed by the daddy. And yet he gets killed and everything. You think, oh, he came up to discuss God. What a liar you are. What a true liar, sadistic abuser. You know what? You think that you're going to say that you're strong enough by saying that um, God would be against people that try to split up the church? Well, you're not a church, right kind of church anyway, if you're not going like that and standing up for children, standing up for what's right. It further says not to pay attention when lies seemingly supported by outward circumstances, to keep patience, obedience, and promise in his ministry, and guard your heart from bitter, vengeful hatred. Well, yeah, guard your heart from bitter, vengeful hatred. That's exactly what you're exhibiting towards Gracie and these other people who are standing up. It mirrors the language used by Sam Johnson in a text messages sent from his dog's Instagram page. It disclosing the abuse brings shame on the name of Jesus Christ and on his church to do this out in open public. Well, excuse me, if you're not doing nothing about it, stop the shame, support the abuser, and guess what? Guess what? You're an abuser also if you're standing beside an abuser. If you're going like this and you're threatening to, you're writing them on Instagram, you're basically threatening them. He wrote to the abused and bereaved mother and daughter, further stating that he loved them all, that they had immense hate built up in their hearts. They had immense hate. How dare you judge them? I'm glad that he's not God. I wonder who made him God, judge, and jury. But while Aaron Solomon and Grace Chapel tried to sue their way out of the situation, Grace Christian Academy is trying to intimidate the folks who speak out by brute juristic force. And Steve Berger and those who adhere to his teachings pray for God to smite their accusers. What is next for Gracie and her mother? So they're praying God to kill the accusers. Is that why Grant, Aaron felt like it was okay to go ahead and kill his son? Because they actually were praying for God to smite these. For the time being, Gracie is safe in foster care, although her alleged abuser, still has custody of her. As far as we can tell, she is incredibly strong and determined to not only survive this, but to thrive. In a video posted to Freedom for Gracie at Instagram, Gracie can be seen hinting at a smile as she thanks those who helped spread her message. In the same video, she states that while things are still hard for her, she feels hopeful and respected for the first time, and she wants to become an advocate when she's older. And here is what that's under Aaron's note. I've chosen to publish this under a pseudonym because Aaron Solomon has already filed a SLAPP suit against his daughter, ex-wife, and 27 other defendants, and I have no doubt that this article will enrage him. Grace Chapel, Grace Christian Academy. Steve Berger, and about a dozen other people with very expensive law degrees. I have tried to err on the side of neutrality and write this wherever it was so an opinion to do so without protecting the alleged abuser. Please find attached a list of links to news articles related to this story, as well as pertinent documents, videos, and pictures. And there's links to all sources, files, and studies quoted also can be found here. I want to see what's in here when I go and look. It's like inc.bio and then backslash 1 year without justice. Excerpts from the forensic examination of the car will post once I get it. Police report on Grant's death. Medical examiner's report. County medical examiner's handbook. Diagram of Grant's accident. Diagram of Grant's accident 2 and 3. NIJ death investigation guidelines. I don't believe you, Mrs. Solomon, on gaslighting, spiritual abuse, and murder in the South. Freedom from Gracie Instagram, and this is down. Also have it archived. The death of Grant Solomon timeline in a PDF. Grant's medical records. Grace Chapel statement. Gracie's affidavit. Connections PDF. Heather Webb, guardian ad litem. Prevalence of false rape allegations. Prevalence of false rape allegations accusation study. And then there's Pastor Steve Berger's Kavanaugh sermon. Angie's mental health records from Parthenian. Exposing our enemies, secured our victory sermon notes by Steve Berger. Gracie's hopeful statement. And then there's Deanna Bell Johnson's oath of office, Philip Smith's oath of office, Gracie's YouTube videos. There's traffic report, injuries associated with hazards involving motor vehicles. And it goes on and on and on. Case file, like I said, this is also about another case too that's going on. And here's John Doe versus Brentwood Academy Incorporated, an appeal from the circuit court. Look who the judge is right here. Look at that, Deanna Johnson, the same judge as I told you before. See, a Tennessee Supreme Court Rule 10b petition for recusal appeal was filed in the court after the trial denied a motion for recusal because of repetition. The petition for recusal appeal was not timely filed in accordance with Tennessee Supreme Court Rule and Bill B. They dismissed it because it was not. But they had it. She was friends with him. And I said this before here, what I showed earlier, Jackie. The governor's office pushes to dissolve Commission on Children and Youth amid foster care woes. That's Governor Bill Lee that goes to that same church that I was talking about. And here's Senator Jack Johnson, which is the spouse of Judge Deanna Johnson, that they're trying to basically looks like they're trying to disband CASA child abuse advocates. So that looks like what's going on with all this. I want to thank you for coming. Yeah, it's very shocking, isn't it? I shared, with how, Gracie and Grants and with the senator and the governor still being affiliated. Now they're trying to push this. They're pushing to dissolve Commission on Children and Youth amid foster care woes. And they're blaming the foster care woes on it. They're not trying to fix whatever problem it is. And a lot of the problem with the system in itself is the fact that did you see it a minute ago when I was at the other place where let's see, yeah, and see, he was also affiliated with Our Kids in Tennessee, which is a nonprofit agency for victims of child survivors of sexual abuse. He was also affiliated with that, and yet, oh man, yep. So See, he's a Sir Steve Berger, viral sensation. On his right is Sam Johnson. It makes me wonder if he's related to Senator Johnson and the judge. And then that's when he was, Aaron Solomon was a news reporter right there. So there's a big stink going on. And this guy who was judge also over one of the cases who dismissed the allegations when Gracie he never explained or apologized for incidents. But anyway, he's the one that ruled when it was proved that Angelia's husband Aaron strangled her, even by the hospital reports and the medical thing were saying yes, she was strangled. She did not try to kill herself. So he dismissed the medical evidence behind it, and he says, "I don't believe you. I do believe you tried to commit suicide because this guy right here, this judge right here, he was friends with Aaron Solomon's. He was friends with Aaron Solomon's lawyer. He was friends. Yeah, there's a lot of problems somewhere. Let's see. Let me go back to this. Okay, let's see where I can find this again. Okay, okay. Let's see. That's going past that. Okay, let's see. Republican state senator and his wife, Judge Deanna Bell Johnson, the judge who signed the order forbidding Angelia Solomon from seeking any legal redress for the abuse she and her family has suffered until she became 18 years old. Coincidentally, Judge Johnson had made a habit of troubling rulings against victims of abuse and assault, as can be seen in how she treated the victim in the Brentwood Academy case. This right here. This is the paragraph I'm really telling you about. This, see, it goes further than that, than Gracie and Grant. Look at this. In August of 2017, a sixth grade student who was sexually assaulted and raped by several other pupils in the locker room at Brentwood Academy, which is a different Christian school, but it's still than what Gracie and Grant went to. The other one's Grace Christian Academy and Grace Christian Church and stuff. And after the assault, dismissed and belittled by the headmaster of the school, Curtis Masters, Judge Johnson ruled that the case had no merit. There it is. She ruled that the case had no merit and she dismissed it with prejudice. According to an article in the Tennessean, Judge Johnson seemed to face accusations of plagiarism because her ruling seemed to have been a copy from the defense's brief, not to be outdone by his wife. Senator Johnson allegedly helped cover up the case of a 3-year-old child who had been sexually assaulted by a teenage Sunday school teacher at Fellowship Bible Church Daycare in Brentwood. I don't think we need much more evidence on them people because it looks like it just counts and counts and counts and counts. And it really bothers me that Governor Lee goes to that church and he's doing nothing about all this. Yet he's got help get some of these new laws passed about sexual abuse and child sex trafficking. What good is it when he's allowing these judges to sweep and the senator to deny the cases and throw it out and not protecting the victims? How unbelievable is that? They took oaths of office and they're not doing their job. Bill Lee needs to be gone like yesterday, and so does Judge Deanna Johnson, and so does that Senator Jack Johnson. while they're up there praying that anyone who goes against them and is speaking out against them, that we basically die. That's actually what Steve Berger has taught them to do, to go and pray. And there is Steve Berger. Exactly what are that's what I was trying to get to. I tried with Aaron, the other day. We get to know. It's like, what are we gonna really do? When we got people like this, and there's a state senator and the governor and all this, and there's laws that's supposed to protect our children. Government needs to stand up and do something about this. We need help terribly wrong. See, and it says right here, to give you a little bit of information, Aaron attends, that's Grace and his father, right? Aaron attends the same fundamentalist church as Tennessee Governor Bill Lee. While this church, Grace Chapel, has stated in a cease and desist issued to writer Shannon Ashley that proper membership in their church is predicated upon completion of some class or other. Aaron did go to church there for many years, but he's also a part of that church. Yes. So I am not going to hush about speaking out against this. We all need to share this story and help others. Make sure y'all let other people that does channels, cases and stuff like this, please get the information out. It needs stopped. It needs stopped bad. Yeah, we got some very good child abuse and child sex trafficking laws new in the books, but what good is that going to do? What good is that going to do when they just keep sweeping it under the rug? And they're praying for us, for our demise, just because we're going against and trying to protect and stop their sadistic behavior uh, about kids, towards kids. It's also been said that Aaron even goes in there in the gymnasium and takes pictures of the girls where they're doing, their PE. Then he goes and also contacts them at social media, like at Facebook. He finds them and he's trying to meet up with them. So he's still sick and he's still trying to meet up with others. And you know that place where our kids, that's a nonprofit, since he's friends with that lady, he's bringing up even more kids that are sexually traumatized. And what better kids to sexually traumatize? It's people that's in the system that's been victimized. Yes, ma'am. Let me see if I can find that thing again, and then I'll reshare the page right when I get to that area again. Let's see. Da, 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 see. Okay. So let me go ahead and I'll share the page um, again. Screen. All right. It says, and finally, we shouldn't forget his years of volunteer work with Our Kids Tennessee, led and founded by Sue Fort White, a nonprofit organization that provides services to vulnerable child survivors of sexual abuse. Our Kids has many connections to social workers, guardians, CASAs, child abuse, sexual advocacies, lawyers, and judges. When reached for comment, Sue Fort White said that Aaron Solomon resigned from the board in 2016 and was merely attended the nonprofit's events as a guest, although There's evidence to suggest that Aaron started a fundraiser for Our Kids Tennessee as late as 2020. So she's still covered for his butt. So y'all, I will not support our kids when this sicko right here is a part of it. Look at her smiling with him too. Look at this. She's proud to take a picture with this pedophile. Get her. And it says, she also said that as a former DCS worker, she trusts in the process as well as policies and procedures of the Tennessee Department of Children's Services. No, they did a thing on it recently, and they said that the system in Tennessee is failing, that they got to redo the system, so you don't know what the heck you're talking about. And if you go like this and you back up pedophiles like him, I would have a problem contributing or doing anything for an organization such as yours. Very unbelievable. Like I said, her name is Sue Fort White. And you can't help but wonder, is the judges like Judge Deanna Johnson, one of the judges that's going like this and helping to hush the victims up? That child, 3 year old, being sexually abused by the school teacher, by the Sunday school teacher. They tried to do something about it, the parents and all, and it was swept under the rug. It says no merit. This kid in school that was gang raped by 5 to 6 different boys. He was gang raped by different. They used their scrotum, they used their private parts, they did different things like this. And Judge Deanna Johnson says there's no merit, and I prosecute. Nope, very unbelievable. So, like I said, I wanted to bring more awareness about these people that's actually doing more to harm Tennessee than it is to help Tennessee. And make sure you let Aaron and them know about this too, if you don't mind, when you do speak to them, because this is very bad. This is horrific. If he wants to change, get to know wants to change laws and stuff, when we already got laws on the books, I don't understand why they said Williamson County is the most strict on child abuse, child sexual abuse, and yet they're letting these people, the judges, slip through the cracks. The schools, the Christian schools over there that's harming the children, sexually abusing the children and everything, they're letting it just go. They said no merit. It's okay. It's okay. Yes, it is. And then by law, we are made to send our kids to school. We are made to send them to school. And now look, where are you sending your kid to school? Nowadays, you got more of a chance of being sexually violated no matter where they go. But if that one thing has a front where they're letting all these people go ahead and you're not to talk about the essay that was done to you, you're not to because that's an abomination. Man, very crazy. That these schools need closed down. That church needs closed down. That's what we need to go for is trying to make sure that these schools like this get closed down when they got people like that that are not representation represented in schools. Something really needs done with Judge and the senator and the governor. Because I was starting to have a little bit of hope with Billy, thinking, well, maybe he's not really that much affiliated. He just basically attends that church. Maybe he. And now, when I seen this news article, no, it shows me very much he's just as involved into the Gracie and Grant Solomon thing. He's just as much liable. And somebody had mentioned in one of the things, they says, well, somebody needs to do an investigation because he said that Governor Bill Lee's first wife died from an accident. I'd like to know more about that story as well. So we don't really know, y'all. This is very heated, and I will be a voice for people as long as I can. And I want to thank you for coming, and God bless you. Lots of love to you, Jackie. Thank you.